Hello and welcome to the Sunday Club. And we're back. As you can see, a new face. Sreemoy is joining us.
Hello.
It's Sreemoy's birthday. So happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday.
Sreemoy.
Happy birthday,
Thank you so
Sreemoy!
much.
Happy
Thank you so much.
birthday to you! Happy birthday to you!
Advaita, you
Happy
miser, did you buy a
birthday,
cake?
dear Sreemoy!
How can I get
Happy
cake?
birthday to
Why, you're the perfect
you!
bloody Mari Antoinette in our country. When
Actually,
people don't have
Abhijit is also
when people
looking.
don't have land, you go and buy a whole mountain in Uttarakhand.
I wish. I need a mountain. But we're back and we're talking about what we call the Minority Report. And I'm really delighted that Sreemoy is joining us because he wrote a really powerful piece in First Post that went viral. Sreemoy, last time I checked, over 1,100 retweets on that piece. So clearly it's resonated with a lot of people. And it was basically, I think, what worked for that piece, given the environment that we're in right now, is just the straight speak. What Sreemoy really addressed there was, the fact, and I think he said it quite plainly. He said that the very existence of Hindus seems to be a trigger, and I'm paraphrasing here. And he built up to it. I would recommend to those of you who have not read that piece, it's on First Post. It came out about 2 days ago, and it tracks the current events, of course, and also gives you a little bit of a historical perspective. And I'm delighted that Sreemoy is joining us to, talk about this at greater length. Suhel Seth is also with us. He's joining us from Kabul. And thanks so
Kabul,
much,
my
Suhel.
bloody foot. It's called New York, Kabul. Kabul is for hacks like you.
And then,
No,
of
but
course,
I'm really worried for Suhel and his safety, because New York has turned into a city full of criminals and robbery and thuggery. All these Democrat cities have. I hope you're safe.
Absolutely. The only time I'm unsafe is
yeah,
when I'm in Advaita's presence.
That's
I'm
true.
safe in
That's
my
true.
presence.
And
People
whoever this
people are
Mandar
saying that.
Karnik is, tell him that I wasn't forced to get up from a nap. It's New York. So obviously this chap doesn't know the difference between time zones. What a fall for a
So
Karnik. We had
that's
a Karnik, now we have a Mandar Karnik.
so basically, Sreemoy, here on this channel, unfortunately, we tend to offend our viewers.
No, we don't offend. Mandar is a sweet
so
person.
it's,
He looks very proper.
so we end up with very limited this thing viewership. But let's just dive right into it because this is a very serious topic. And I have myself personally avoided being on a lot of the debates on this subject because I thought they were just really shrill. But let's discuss this in a sort of as calm a manner as possible. Sreemoy, you listed out that in the start of April, you actually mentioned all the states. There was Andhra, uh, Gujarat,
So
West
I,
Bengal.
if I can
Yeah.
begin with, we can begin with something. See, I don't track the political stories too closely these days because I'm focusing a little bit more on the foreign affairs stories that are right. So my generally my research cycle is based more on those. But when this Ram Navami celebrations and before that, I think there were some low intensity communal clashes happening all around. So when I thought that I'd write a piece, before I actually decided to write a piece, the noise that I was getting from all the media around me and social media, the the TV and the papers, it led me to believe that these were communal clashes. Now, when you say communal clashes, then what happens is that you are implying that culpability lies on both sides. That is what communal
Correct.
clashes mean. It is not one-sided
Exactly.
thing. So initially, when I thought that I'd write a piece on this, as is my nature, I try to read up on it as much as possible. Now, when I was reading articles, and mind you, these are not articles by any fringe websites. These are reportages by the legacy media, the mainstream legacy media in India, and these reports, and it's there in the public domain for anyone to read. So when I was reading these reports from Hindustan Times, NDTV, even The Wire, and all these reports, it was very clear to me that in all of these incidents, the violence started when the Muslims started throwing stones and missiles and other things, and that is when things went out of hand. And in some cases, these processions couldn't even go on; they were abandoned midway. So when I was going through those reports, it seemed to me that the existing narrative is so wrong. It is so biased, and it is so blatantly. It's a falsehood to say that both sides were clashing. It was very clear to me that all the fact that these processions were going through places which are designated as Muslim majority areas, that was provocation
Hmm.
enough. And from there, the other side sought the justification for the trigger, and then violence started. And to
Hmm.
top it all, this very skewed paradigm was given intellectual ballast by our liberals who are whitewashing the Muslim street power. And from there, sweeping generalizations were being made. So the thing is that, nomenclature and interpretations, as I see it, these are the core essentials of any discourse. Whenever we are talking about the main discourse, mainstream discourse, or we can also call it the narrative. And these nomenclatures and these interpretations, they shape the sort of the moral judgments or the social cognitions of the events that are happening. So what
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
happening, what the liberals do is that they take hold of these interpretations, they take hold of these nomenclatures, and they give to us the preset views and the ideas through which we are supposed to see certain events. We are not allowed to see the events in their entirety, but we must see it through their
Hmm.
lens. So, what we should
Hmm.
do, and which I have tried to do here, is to provide basically a neutral lens to see that, look, this is what is happening. So, you don't need to see
Hmm.
through their lens. You see whatever is happening in its entirety and decide for yourself. And the truth is there for everyone to see.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, Suhel, being our Desi Shakespeare, words matter. I mean, nomenclature, I think Sreemoy has made a very, very important point because the moment you frame this conflict or these acts of violence in a communal clashes language, then there's culpability on both sides. And then that kind of self perpetuates. And the fact of the matter is, and the gentleman who died in Gujarat during the
Gujarat.
stone pelting was a 69-year-old Hindu man, a senior citizen, Mr. Rana. But we don't hear anything about him.
So let's go back into Indian history for a bit. Manu in Manu Smriti, almost 3,800 years ago, talked about dhan, charity, the art of giving. What did the world do and the left liberals in the so called liberal world that Sreemoy also refers to? They made Warren Buffett and Bill Gates the poster boys of giving back. We have had a history, no pun intended, of tarnishing majoritarianism, of tarnishing Hindus. And the tragedy here, Advaita, is if you attack a Hindu, either physically or morally or intellectually, you are seen as someone who is upholding the values of secularism. But if a Muslim gets attacked, or for that matter, any minority, it becomes communal. So words do matter. A. B. Please recognize that provocation is part of human behavior. Whether you go into Freud or you look at Shakespeare, you look at anyone. When provoked, communities don't tend to follow the Gandhian principle of offering the other cheek. That's
Hmm.
the Gandhian principle irrelevant. We've seen that across the world. The tragedy is that, as Jaishankar talked about the century of humiliation, America is now
Hmm.
trying to preach to the world and tell the world what equality is all about when until the mid 70s they had no rights for blacks. I mean, remember Rosa Parks. It took a Lyndon
Yeah.
Johnson, not a left liberal like John F. Kennedy, to sign a black rights
Hmm.
bill into an act. Where the problem in India is we don't have within the Hindu ecosystem voices that are either respected or that are seen as rational. Those voices are
Hmm.
immediately
Hmm.
seen as fringe. I can take a bet that Sreemoy would be trolled and targeted by a lot of the left wingers, and he might lose his
Hmm.
invitation to literature festivals and so on, because he will now be colored as a person who has
Yeah.
become right wing. I
Hmm.
genuinely believe, Advaita, I was born and raised in Calcutta. I am a centrist. I have no right, no left, and I really don't care.
Hmm.
When we were born and raised in Calcutta, the Adda was at the heart of our existence. And the Adda meant
Hmm.
you could disagree without being disagreeable. Today, we have
Right.
created a society where if you disagree with me, you are disagreeable and you will be part of the cancel culture. Number two,
Hmm.
I think it's about time that there is a course correction in history. The fact that Modi and his government is doing it is again seen as a right wing intervention. But look at the tragedy of
Hmm.
Indian history. The last genuine historian was Mazumdar, again a Bengali from Calcutta, who used research as the benchmark for creating what he did. After that, we've had
Hmm.
liberals and the left liberals who've actually worked to a narrative set by an agenda which you and I are familiar with, but we couldn't counter.
Hmm.
So the following
Hmm.
need to happen. Number one, as Sreemoy said in his article and just now, if we see signs of provocation, those signs of provocation must be called out and must lead to their chronological evolution as to why did this happen. And if it happened, this was the fallout. Number two, we need more strict judicial intervention, not the kind where judges say, ha, we will see. Because tragically, in India, even what you see is not held as true until it has judicial sanctity or judicial sanction. Number three, you need more Sreemoys. You need more people who will come out and say that, look, I'm not asking you to
Hmm.
look at the world through my eyes, but for once, keep your eyes open and listen to what actually happened. Television
Hmm.
channels, sadly, are either completely left or completely right, which causes an even greater muddle. You don't have the neutrality that the media should and did have at one stage. Finally,
Hmm.
and before Abhijit comes in, I think it is time that Hindus stopped being apologetic for being Hindu and Muslims stopped being victims for being Muslims. This victim culture must also vanish. There is a certain equality in our country guaranteed by our constitution, guaranteed by judges and by the justice system. You cannot, for every incident of pure provocative violence, blame an entire faith, either Hindus or Muslims. You cannot, for your own narrow party objectives, color Hindus as communal and Muslims as secular or vice versa. And I think until we stop that, we will continue to divide the nation grievously for no fault of ours. By 2030, we'll be the world's largest Muslim population. We will outstrip Indonesia. What are we going to do then? Also the symbolism that we attach with mosques being raised or temples being raised, temples being raised in retaliation. I mean, these are bizarre things.
Hmm. Abhijit, you're with us after a whirlwind tour of the Middle East and living your glamorous life, as we all know. I don't know how closely you were tracking what was happening in India, but there's I think Sohail made a very important point. Is this parallel narrative? Where there is violence, then victimhood, then violence, then victimhood, then who is the bigger victim? Who is the victim in this case? It just goes round and round and round. And more importantly, it's so easy to get provoked. And then surprisingly, that provocation or that provocation is used to ignore even violence that causes death, as has been the case here. The fact that you pelted stones and an old man died, what level of provocation justifies that? And in Sreemoy's piece, I refer to it again, he quoted B.R. Ambedkar, and who spoke about this, that playing music outside a mosque is suddenly provocation when that happens in Islamic countries. It's okay, but here it's provocation. So how far are we going to take this provocation and this whole? I remember seeing tweets at that time that this is a Muslim area and you did this in a Muslim area. Now imagine if people were started saying this is a Hindu area.
Right. Now, look, the first issue that we have is that the Indian state and Hindus in general, we don't understand first principles. Or if we do, we certainly don't express state policy or national policy or even editorial policy through those first principles. All right. And this becomes very problematic because when you look at the Israelis or French, first, they have a state uh, where state capacity is maximum. Both France and Israel, when the state says something, they do something. In India, you have a third world country where state capacity is minimal. So 90% of the times you don't do things, 10% of the time you do things, and your response seems mixed up. Second, if and when you do things, the entire issue gets confused so badly where, the ruling party doesn't even brief its spokespersons. I was on a TV show with a BJP spokesperson, and he went on saying, even though the government was saying the Jahangirpuri demolition was because it was illegal, it had nothing to do with the Jahangirpuri violence, the spokesperson was coming on TV and went on saying, "Haan, aapne ye kiya to hum bhi todenge." Okay, so zero discipline, zero messaging, zero packaging, all of that. Second issue in all of this that we need to look at is, let these people say what they want, because they don't seem to understand that they have come down now from God knows how many hundreds, from 450 in 1984 to 52, to 1/10 of their seats today. And everybody else is in the double-digit categories. None of their parties are able to touch the triple-digit categories, precisely because the left are also making fools of themselves. Okay, you think people don't see through it? Everybody sees through it. Everybody sees through what they're doing. I am a very late BJP voter. Yet today, I mean, you've seen me, I do everything that is haram under the sun, including something that offends you, which is eating beef. Okay. But the problem here is, even somebody like me gets so offended by these people justifying Muslim violence, Islamist violence, that even blindly, tomorrow it doesn't matter how much I abuse the BJP, how much I abuse Modi, I am going to go to the election and I'm going to blindly press the BJP ka button. Right? Every Hindu today feels this way, to some extent or the other. These people who go on putting off all this, and there are people who just come. I don't know what happens to some of these people like this Saema and Rana Ayub. They almost seem to get up and think, आज मैं क्या ट्वीट कर सकती हूँ हिंदुओं के खिलाफ और मुसलमान के लिए. It's they're fighting this civil war already in their heads. And nobody wants that kind of toxicity dripping in, day out, 24/7, every single day of the week. Third issue is one that we have to look at the BJP itself, because whether we like it or not, Hindu, an identifying political Hindu, and because the left has forced everybody to identify as a political Hindu today has only one option, and that is the BJP. There is no second Hindu party. Okay, so we've got all our eggs in just one basket. Now that basket refuses to capture the narrative. Okay, for the last 8 years that it has been in power, it has been very single-handedly incapable of reversing a single international or domestic narrative that has come about at all. People who reverse the narrative for them are invariably outside the government. It is never the people within the government reversing a single narrative. And the worst thing is, the people who deal with that outreach and PR are so unaccountable that in spite of their repeated failures for 8 years, there is no change. Now, personally, I don't care if the BJP goes to hell. My issue is that you are the only basket for Hindu hopes right now. If you go to hell, I go to hell. Okay, if you go to hell, political Hinduism goes to hell. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the way the left debate has shifted, it is so vitriolically against the idea of an Indian nation, the idea of a civilizational state, that India gets harmed when the BJP doesn't do a good job of defending itself, and sadly, it does an atrocious job of defending itself. The last point, a very small point that I'll make very quickly, is we need to understand that at least since 1857, when Muslim political power in the subcontinent was destroyed, the Muslim means of political power, the tool of political negotiation, has been street violence. They are incentivized into street violence, and when they want something, the first opening gambit in the negotiation is street violence. The closing gambit in the negotiation is street violence. So first, you also have to multiply their tools of social negotiation, which they do not have. And mind you, this is a Sunni problem. This is increasingly a Sunni problem. When was the last time you saw a Shia riot happen? When was the last time you saw the Boris or the Ismailis go about rioting? Right. So this is always, even people tend to forget this, but even direct action day and things like that were Sunni riots. So there is a need to first narrow, identify, deal, give them this kind of political expression. Sadly, you can't, because ever since 1857, when their political power was crushed, they have been effectively captured by a sort of feudal elite that control their aspirations, their voice, their everything. You tell me, do you realistically, does anyone understanding realistically think if 190 million Indian Muslims thought the way Rana Ayub and Saima and all those people do, we won't be in a state of civil war?
Right.
So I'll end it there.
Right.
Advaita, before Rajiv comes in, I just want to make two quick observations. Without mentioning names, someone asked me to intervene in the sense to get people that one knows, whether it's in London or in New York, in the world of media, to look at the contrary point of view, or actually look at the whole perspective. But here's the problem. Never has a government done so much and been rewarded with so little in terms of media internationally, including the whole triple talaq. Number two, we have completely lost the plot as far as communicating with the outside world is concerned. Our defense mechanism is, they don't know who we are. We are very happy. To hell with New York Times, to hell with Washington Post. That is the worst way of managing PR and the worst way of changing perception. You always make allies out of your enemies, not further deepened enemies out of your enemies. We have had no narrative coming out from the government or its various embassies or high commissions which corrects this narrative. To my mind, this is the biggest disaster as far as the Indian government is concerned. And unless we correct this, there will be trouble. What we do is, we have, as Abhijit rightly said, we have the same party spokespeople or people identified with the BJP. You need to identify people with India. They should not belong to the BJP if you want that narrative to be believed. And Sreemoy alluded to it. There are many people who are non-aligned politically who are willing to tell you what the truth is as far as India is concerned. But we don't do that. And then we make silly mistakes. You stop Rana Ayub for an enforcement malafide, and then you give a permission. So it's a very weird. Financial criminality is then converted into victimization of Muslims in India. And this is the narrative that keeps getting played out. So I don't know what Rajiv Tuli's friends in the RSS are also doing about this. Because silence in India is seen as complicit. We have to react not with violence and not with anger. Arey, hum to India hai. No. You've got to play the game the way they play the game. And we're not able to do it.
Rajiv Tuliji, this is, earlier today I was on Republic. They broke this investigation about, a global kind of conspiracy, which basically connects the dot back to George Soros and, their religious freedoms body, which kind of pontificates on all sorts of religious freedoms across the world. And a quick Google search of theirs will show that they've never ever commented, or at least not in the quick Google search. I'd have to really do a deep dive to see if they've commented on the persecution that is being experienced by, say, Hindus in Bangladesh or Pakistan. Those never come up on their radar at all. So even though they do address Pakistan and religious freedoms, they focus on the Ahmadiyas, which they should, because that does take place. But never, I've not seen the Hindu issue come up. Now, in this kind of an environment, of course, Pakistan has a legacy with the United States. If we go back to pre-Cold War era, the kind of cooperation, the bonhomie that existed, the dole that they've been receiving. And also, on the other hand, for those people who are familiar with international diplomacy, they also say that Pakistan is very good when it comes to lobbying. It has well placed lobbyists in the United States. Now, where lobbying may be illegal in India, but in a country like the US, it is very much permitted and is effective as a way of getting your voice heard on international forums. Of course, Prime Minister Modi's own diplomacy has been very strong. He's focused on it. External Affairs Minister Jay Shankar has been making some very, very good interventions in international discourse and really setting the stage for how India wishes to be seen as the largest democracy in the world. But Rajiv ji, we need to do more, and we need to do it, like Suhel said, in a more structured way. This aversion to the media, the fact that okay, they don't, maybe the Washington Post doesn't have any impact on whether you win an election in UP or a General Assembly election, but it does create an environment that is very negative, and a lot of what is positive and what is good that is happening here uh, is ignored.
नहीं मुझे अद्वैता मुझे नहीं लगता कि अभी ऐसा है पिछले 7-8 साल में और मेबी 2019 के बाद और अब तक इसमें बहुत चेंजेस भी आए हैं yes it's for sure that more needed और यादा करने की जरूरत है मगर अभी काफी चीजें काफी तेजी से बदली है उसमें internationally also the isolation of Pakistan that have happened and the few silly mistakes as Suhel was mentioning done by Pakistan taking Malaysia and another country along and then probably trying to veto Saudi Arabia and all तो वो भी उसका एक पार्ट हो सकता है बट पाकिस्तान का जो आइसोलेशन विद इन इस्लामिक नेशंस and in the world to a larger perspective is very visible और acceptance हमारी जो acceptance है as a country the acceptance is there दिख रही है acceptance खैर इंटरनेशनल उसमें डोमेन में इंटरनेशनल जो पॉलिसी या पॉलिटी वो मेरा डोमेन है देयर आर अदर पीपल ऑन द पैनल अभिजीत और सुहेल कैन कमेंट ऑन दैट but the problem
Sreemoy is
that
an
we are
expert on
discussing
international.
yeah Sreemoy is also an expert on that मगर ये जो प्रॉब्लम जिसको जो जहांगीरपुरी में आपको दिखा या खरगोन में दिखा करौली में दिखा ये जो प्रॉब्लम है ये दिस इज नॉट अ न्यू फिनोमिनन और न्यू प्रॉब्लम the only thing that is happening is that probably it is being repulsed उसका इफेक्ट आप अगर भारत में जितने भी बड़े रॉयट्स हुए हैं if you see the history if you talk of Noakhali you talk of Bhagalpur you talk of Bokaro in 2019 these all have happened around Hindu festivals आप उसमें और उससे भी पहले अगर आप जाएंगे नोआखली से भी पहले तो नागपुर में ये एनुअल रिचुअल होता था 2027 से पहले विजयदशमी के पास में विजयदशमी से पहले एक त्योहार रहता है शायद उसको वट लक्ष्मी या वरलक्ष्मी कुछ ऐसा कुछ एक फेस्टिवल रहता है जिसमें हिंदूज टेक आउट द मराठी हिंदूज टेक आउट देयर ऑल वेल्थ कीप इट एट वन प्लेस इन द टेम्पल इन देयर ओन जो घर का मंदिर है उसमें रखते हैं उसकी पूजा करते हैं हर साल मुसलमानों को पता होता था ये त्योहार मनाया जाता है और इस त्योहार के आसपास दंगा होता था लूट होती थी जो सारा जो था वो रहता था दिस इज एन ओल्ड अगर आप थोड़ा और पीछे जाएंगे मुगल्स में जाएंगे तो दिल्ली के आसपास जो लोग रहते हैं चांदनी चौक में इधर उधर हिंदू त्योहारों के आसपास जो ठीक है देयर आर स्पोरेडिक कम्युनल हार्मनी काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स आल्सो एग्जिस्ट कि जिसमें वो दिखाते हैं कि राम यात्रा निकल रही है तो उस पे फूल वूल फेंके जा रहे हैं वो सब हो रहा है दैट इज आल्सो देयर बट लार्जली this is this problem is something which I term it as Islamism versus nationalism. So Muslim Brotherhood तो और ये सिर्फ यही नहीं है जहां पर भी अभी आपने स्वीडन यू हैव टेकन सीन द एग्जांपल ऑफ स्वीडन ईस्टर पे हुआ वहां पे आप और थोड़ा सा ढूंढेंगे तो शायद बेल्जियम और स्पेन के एग्जांपल्स भी आपको मिल जाएंगे so this have nothing to do with Hindu aggression, yeah, the kind or the kind of slogans, जो बोला जा रहा है कि slogans ऐसे रहते हैं जिसके कारण से they get agitated. But if somebody gets agitated, you were very agitated 4 or 5 days back, but you didn't had a heap of stones on your rooftop. तो वो आपके वहां पे घर पे तो नहीं था गुस्से में भी आपने किसी को नहीं मारा है तो व्हाट इज दिस आई मीन और ये मुझे लगता है कि हर कम्युनिटी अपनी एक आइडेंटिटी क्रिएट करती है तो हेयर द आइडेंटिटी इज a beard, a long beard. It is. And then a white scalp cat, and maybe wherever you are in sufficient numbers, maybe namaz on the road or the term that you used as a Muslim area. How can there be a Muslim area? और फिर उससे जैसे मैं आपको इसका एक पैरेलल आइडेंटिटी जो क्रिएट हुई उसका एक पैरेलल देता हूँ आप इफ यू कम टू somebody is from हरियाणा तो आप वो irrespective of whether he is Jat, he is non-Jat, he is whatever, so you will expect an aggression from him. So this is the community have created a identity for themselves and that identity वो offended मतलब वो बहुत जल्दी ऑफेंड हो जाते हैं एक ऐसी आइडेंटिटी उन्होंने अपनी क्रिएट कर रखी है और उसके बाद दे आई मीन बिकॉज ऑफ थोड़ा शायद मे बी आई डोंट नो हाउ फार दिस इज ट्रू but there can be something called fear psychosis also. I don't know how true this is. The others can, but I have not seen that fear
I think Suhel
psychosis
also wants
that
to come in.
so in that
Suhel also
community.
wants to
So
come in.
ये सब चीजें जो नेशनली या इंटरनेशनली जो हो रही है ये दिस इज नॉट समथिंग दिस इज नॉट अ लोकलाइज्ड और कंटेम्पररी प्रॉब्लम कि आज की प्रॉब्लम नहीं है दिस प्रॉब्लम इज देयर सिंस एजेस दिस इज हैपनिंग सिंस एजेस कम से कम भारत में तो हो रहा है और बाकी भी जिन जिन जगहों पर पिछले 40-50 साल में मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन बढ़ी है that can be UK, that can be Spain, that can be Sweden, that can be Belgium, that can be Germany, or internationally also. If you talk, what you read, what you hear, what you see is this. So there is, and then as rightly they are expert in playing the victim card also. यहाँ पर भी वो टीवी पर जब आएंगे तो वो दिखाएंगे कि एक एंड देन दे हैव अ कंप्लीट इकोसिस्टम जो इकोसिस्टम एम्पलीफाई करता है चीज़ों को उनके लिए उसका एम्पलीफिकेशन होता है वो आपको सोशल मीडिया पे दिखेगा वो आपको ओपेड्स पे दिखेगा 3 days 3 op-eds in 3 different newspapers SY कुरैशी भानु भानु प्रताप मेहता सारिका घोष राजदीप सरदेसाई 2 in Indian Express, 1 in Times of India, and 1 in HT.
Deepu
So if
Charger.
you read all these four, I am talking of nationally, international मेरा domain नहीं है मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूँ. So nationally they have an ecosystem also which will start branding the Hindus as an aggressor, as an hawkish, as an whatever term you can use. So this problem has to be
Rajiv
looked
ji,
at in this perspective.
Correct, but Rajivji, one thing also, there is an increase in provocative speech that is coming from so-called Hindu leaders as well. I mean, we cannot. Okay, on one side, there is some truth to the matter that this is an easily they present themselves or certainly the most voluble section of them present themselves as an easily offended community. But on the other hand, there has been vitriol also that has been heaped on the community as well. We can't. Sreemoy, go ahead, please. You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
So I'll take from Rajiv ji's comments and also the comment that you made right now. Look, there are two ways of looking at this. What you said just now about that some Hindu leaders are also making comments which are inflammable and they can create a lot of trouble. So I think the first thing that we must realize is that India has a very big state capacity issue. I mean, a lot of these violent incidents wouldn't have taken place simply because they took place because the state isn't it isn't able enough to stop this. It doesn't have enough policemen. It doesn't have enough people who can inform them. It doesn't all down the line, all down the chain. It simply doesn't have enough personnel or capable administrators who can stop these incidents of street violence. I believe that largely the Indian state is a very fair one. It does not discriminate. It what it does it the problem that it has is that it doesn't have the enough capacity to stop incidents of violence. Now, where the opportunism comes in is from the liberal circle and from the Islamist circle. They take, and this, there are two ways of looking at this. One is the Islamist lens and another is the political lens. The opportunism comes in from the liberal circle. What they do is that they then take these incidents and then they run this spurious narrative, this extremely spurious narrative that the majority in India is violent, the majority in India under BJP is turning extremely intolerant, and they base this premise on two things. One is that the institutions in India are failing. They are actively discriminating against the Muslims and they are aiding the Hindus. And the second premise that they come from is that while it is okay for the Muslims to express or assert their identity, it is not okay for the Hindus to do so. From these two basic premises, they come to their third conclusion that if there is no civil unrest, if there is no exhibition of street power in India, then the political regime change is not going to be possible. This is basically an expression of their cynical frustration at the incompetence of the political opposition in India right now. These people, they realize, the liberals and the Islamists who treat BJP as an anathema, they understand that the opposition is in no place to politically challenge the BJP, so they have lost investing hope in them. What they are trying willy-nilly to do is to encourage street violence, encourage civil unrest, so that can become a de facto political model, which is why you see all these things happening. I'll stop there.
Abhijit,
I don't think that this is happening for the first time. This is not happening for the first time. The kind of riots that are happening mostly around this is again a narrative that is being built. कि हिंदू अभी पिछले 8 साल से 10 साल से बहुत aggressive हो गया है, aggression आ गया है. So the Hindus are one of the most tolerant the breed available on the earth. आपको जितने भी एग्जाम्पल्स दिखेंगे मंदिर में नमाज के लिए दे दिया, गुरुद्वारे में नमाज के लिए दे दिया. अरे यार कभी वो भी तो दिखाओ ना, कहीं मस्जिद में भी नमाज के लिए दे दिया, मस्जिद को सूर्य के सुंदरकांड के पाठ के लिए खोल दिया. I mean, there is not, if you take the example of this particular Jahangir Puri riot, there is not one visual available where वो बोला कि मस्जिद में घुस के झंडा फहरा रहे थे, मगर नैरेटिव चल रहा है, that is happening. And most of the people from the minority or the majority तो बहुत जोर से बोला है इसको, जो मेजोरिटी में भी जो मेजोरिटी लोग भी जो बैठे हैं वो भी इसी को दोष जो है वो अपने सर पे उठ रहे हैं. So my this thing is that the kind of narratives that are being the kind of narrative that is being made. So we need to counter that needs to have a counter.
So again, one quick. Suhel, would you mind if I go first?
Let Abhijit go first.
See, this thing that Hindus are getting aggressive, Hindus should not be getting aggressive. That is not their job. It is the role of the state. You understand? The answer to Islamist radicalization is not Hindu street power. The answer to Islamist radicalization is an increase in capacity building of the state to tackle these issues. So, see, what the BJP does is that they keep avoiding addressing these fundamental basic issues. Now, when you say capacity building, sometimes, Advaita, even you yourself are guilty of it. You brought about all these smart aleck remarks. Achha.
Who the hell is
Kaun
this?
chila raha
This noise and all.
hai? Kaun?
I can't
Right
hear. Abhijit.
No.
It's not
So
me,
now,
it's Abhijit.
Jai Shankar, no, it's not me. I'm not screaming. I don't have a fisherwoman screaming behind me. But Jai Shankar,
You're
he
blaming me
loves
for
making all
something
these.
and then somebody interrupted.
Advaita, it is you. When I said fisherwoman, it was a very kind. I was being very polite. So Jai Shankar, he makes all these glib remarks, and everybody goes,
See, I'm not.
"Ah,
I'm
see,
not.
he's-
I'm not easily
one
provoked.
second, let me serious now. We all go, see, he's so smart. He makes all these fantastic remarks. Do you know? As it is, in when he was foreign secretary, he was making all these big remarks. We're going to expand the foreign service to 3,500 people when it was 700 odd people. Today, under his foreign ministership, we have come down to 620 to 630 people. Okay, so even what little capacity you had when he was foreign secretary has reduced by 1/5 to 1/6 while he was foreign minister. Today, nobody wants to hold him to account for the statements he made when he was foreign secretary. So again, you are reducing state capacity. Third, I agree on this point of ecosystem. But tell me, how long is 8 years too little to create an ecosystem? I have not even seen the fragment of an ecosystem being created. You still have BJP readers writing in the Indian Express. The Indian Express is known. There is an author out there called Muzammil Jalil who incites these things in Kashmir, who has been doing this exact thing. When this Lakhimpur Kheri happened, it was crystal clear from point one that convoy had been stoned. And guess what? NDTV was showing the stoning, but they were not talking about the stoning. They were instead talking about the fact that it mowed people down, even though there was clear cause and effect. Now, you will have people write for the Indian Express. You will have people from the BJP then go to NDTV. They will be awarded, rewarded, whatnot. Okay, where have you even tried to create an ecosystem? No. The people chosen to, I don't know if they're chosen to write or whatever, they make the most uninteresting, ungermane points around. Okay, and that is the only thing that seems to sell with whoever controls this media policy at the PMO. So there is no ecosystem that you don't even know how to deal with it. There is this correspondent for the Guardian in Delhi. She goes around telling people that I am going to destroy this government. One piece from me and this government will fall. Uska visa cancel karo.
I'm sorry.
She's
That's funny.
She's on record saying these things, not at one place, at several different places. Uska visa cancel karo? No. You know why? Because the British High Commissioner has promised somebody in the government some babu, some job, some education at Cambridge or Oxford. I don't know if it's Cambridge or Oxford. I don't know where. So you can't cancel her visa also, because it's like, let this happen and we will give your kids jobs. Scholarships and whatnot. 98% of your bureaucracy's kids study abroad. At government salary, how the hell are you to assume that there is such a great concentration of genetic intelligence in the bureaucracy that 98% of their kids are able to get fully funded scholarships abroad? And if there is such a concentration of genetic intelligence in your IAS, IFS and all of that, how are we a third world shithole? Okay, so there is this. Lastly, final point. When I say there is that inconsistency, Sreemoy made a point of lack of state capacity. The problem is, even lacking that state capacity, you are inconsistent. For example, everybody wants to talk about the land grabbing in Jahangirpuri. मेरे कॉलोनी में आओ, मैं सफदरजंग एनक्लेव में रहता हूँ. I will do videos and post it starting tomorrow, where all my neighborhood uncle aunties, they have grabbed land outside their compound, decide to extend their gardens out there. They have decided to grab the land out opposite their compound also, and put reserved parking for
Parking,
B2,
yes.
ABC. And if you go park
Yeah.
your car there, they will puncture your tires and whatnot. My friend Arjun Singh Kadian, he came and parked his car outside somebody else's house on public thing, because they've already grabbed the garden land outside. They came and broke his windshield wipers. The police come, and they are not able to do anything to this lady who broke the windshield wipers. They refuse to do anything. Okay, this all comes under BJP.
Yeah.
Okay, so
No.
that land grabbing of the middle class and the upper middle class is so in your face day to day in every locality and neighborhood. What are they doing about that? Kuch nahi.
Absolutely. I mean, so most of Suhail's friends stay in scenic farms, and that's completely illegal. But you won't see a bulldozer heading in
Kuch
that
nahi hoga.
direction.
But unlike
हाँ.
मेरे
you,
दोस्त भी
I've
उधर ही
called
रहते
them
हैं.
out. Unlike you, I've called them out. You sup with the devil and then, not sleep, but live with them. But I want to make a couple of points because I've heard everyone. Firstly, Tuli Saab, who I love to death, he must get a new audio system. Because the other problem with the BJP oblique the RSS is they can never be heard. And if they're heard, there's so much of bad sound quality that gets screwed. It's almost as if
I thought that was Advaita screaming.
No. It was
No.
Tuli. He, in fact, even got a call from
Yeah, that's your
during the
fantasy.
program. So here's my solution-driven response. Number one, get all the jokers who communicate on behalf of the BJP and the RSS into a college or a school for immediate training. People want bullet points. The only person who speaks well in this government is Modi because he's understood the power of slogans and abbreviations. The rest, when they communicate, it's like a bore fest or a snore fest. That needs to change. Number two, this is the tragedy of India, what I'm about to tell you. Hindus have political leaders meddling in religion. Muslims have religious leaders trying to meddle in politics.
Yeah,
Muslims don't have political leadership of the kind they need, and that's a tragedy that has inflicted them since Jinnah left the shores or left the building. Number three, Abhijit said, and rightly so, about Jaishankar in the foreign ministry. Look at our pathetic use of centers that we had created ostensibly for soft power. The Nehru Center in London is known more for its samosas and terrible wine rather than the events that it holds. Whether it's a book launch, it's terrible. And I know Amish Tripathi is trying to make a difference, but he's also hemmed and hawed in by the High Commission there.
Exactly.
Number three, our diplomats have now learned the fine art of wining and dining industrialists. Industrialists are the most convenient compromise lot. They will run whenever there's a crisis. So don't think that these people are going to help you when push comes to shove or take a stand against their own countries in favor of India. Number four, we have to make one thing clear, that violence has no religion. The moment even a BJP person responds by saying, "Par unhone Hinduon ko attack kiya tha," you are willy-nilly giving them the upper hand. You are agreeing to the communal chanting that's going to happen. So I think there has to be certain amount of intelligence in the way these people communicate. Finally, even a book. Now, there's an excellent book by this lady called Priyam Gandhi Modi on a nation to protect. It talks about COVID. It talks about what Narendra Modi did. It talks about what you and I as Indians did. That too has been given the color कि भाई ये BJP की किताब है. The BJP is either intelligent or just doesn't have the wherewithal to counter this ridiculously low-level narrative. I mean, a school child would be able to counter it, but these people with control of the state are unable to do so. Everything that the BJP does in favor of anyone is seen as communal. Anything that the Congress does, including a temple run by Rahul Gandhi, is seen as secular. This shows you the fault lines that exist in India. So why the hell can't we do something about it? You, on the other hand, were paid enormous sums of money by Yogi Adityanath during his UP campaign. But you've pocketed that money, bought yourself a mountain in Uttarakhand, and you've also walked. And my last point, and this is a very important point, you know what the tragedy with BJP, some of the BJP people is? The BJP guys so desperately want Latvian acceptance.
Exactly.
The
Inferiority
Latvian
But
complex.
guys,
there
Latvian guys,
is a Latvians
no, listen
BJP
to me.
wing
The
also.
Latvian guys don't even think that the BJP guys are worthy of them. Why would you want to be a member of a club, as Groucho Marx said, that would have you as a member?
No,
That'll
do
have
you
you,
think
yeah.
that Modi or the central
But
leadership
अब क्या हुआ? What happened?
He's
Anyway,
gone, but
okay,
I
let me
just want to
quickly.
tell my
But see,
viewers
this is
that one
Advaita.
really good reason.
Advaita, 1 second. See, your viewers are quite dumb. Like this fellow Akhil Dham, who says Abhijit has lost it. I heard him say government needs to find out exactly who threw the stone and which stone did what. This is the kind of stupidity and lack of knowledge of law and order that produces morons who run this
Are you
security
kidding me? That
policy
was
of
the
this government.
smartest comment.
That was
Oof.
That was the stupidest comment, and the
You all
fact
stop
that you find it
antagonizing
smart says a lot
my
about you.
viewers.
So here is the problem. Do you understand what is the reason that Akhilesh Teni is in trouble? It is because you're not able to establish cause effect, which is the critical element of the law. Once you establish, see, this is the problem we keep talking about state capacity. And this is why idiots like Akhil Dham will never get it, because unless you are able to establish cause effect, you are not going to be able to have a functioning police system in this country that acts consistently, persistently the same over and over again. The definition of tyranny is the lack of consistency. The law is the law because it is consistent in its application. Okay, the law is the law because you do not punish collateral. You punish the person who has done something. You don't go demolish Suhel Seth's house because Abhijit-Mitra did not invite you for dinner. But this goof Akhil Dham wants you to demolish Suhel Seth's house because Abhijit Iyer-Mitra did not invite you to dinner. कैसे कैसे viewer हैं यार तुम्हारे?
So you just ranted at my viewer who said I'm the only man in this panel. Okay.
That too
And
you
that is a
are.
Yeah,
cool,
That
that
too you
is
that is
are.
a very cool
I mean,
comment.
I
Very
have,
cool
no, I'm,
comment.
I
I'm
have,
glad
I,
that
I
अद्वैता
have,
अद्वैता
I have,
मुझे
I have
I'm glad you
always
consider yourself
accepted your
Indira
gender
Gandhi.
मुझे
fluid. I know you are
सुहेल से
gender
कुछ पूछना है
fluid.
सुहेल
पूछिए
पूछिए जी, पूछिए, पूछिए, आपकी छत्र छाया में जी रहे हैं,
सुहेल
पर
पूछिए।
श्रीमोय को भी बात करने
ओ
दीजिए.
नहीं
He has to leave for
महाराज
his
ओ
birthday
नहीं सर
party.
नहीं सर नहीं देखो आप हमारे पे आपकी कृपा ये संडे क्लब के माध्यम से आती है अदरवाइज नहीं हमारे ऊपर आपकी कृपा कृपा इसलिए हम आपके वो प्रकाश से प्रकाशमान है हम आप हमारे सूरज हो हमको चांद है आपकी रोशनी लेकर के रात को थोड़ा निकल जाते हैं बाहर अच्छा सुहेल जी आपने कहा कि मुस्लिम्स की प्रॉब्लम ये है कि उनके पास जिना के बाद लीडर नहीं है लीडरशिप नहीं है राइट 75 साल हो गए जी देश को आजाद हुए कब तक हम हिंदू और मुस्लिम की बहरी में और हिंदू मुस्लिम लीडरशिप अलग और हिंदू लीडरशिप अलग ये नैरेटिव भी कब तक चलाते रहेंगे अभी 75 साल में भी दे आर नॉट एबल टू अलाइन देमसेल्फ टू द मेन स्ट्रीम ऑफ द मेन स्ट्रीम ऑफ द कंट्री और वो उनको अपनी लीडरशिप अलग चाहिए तो अभी जितनी भी वेलफेयर मेजर्स उधर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट या गवर्नमेंट्स ले रही है दोज आर नॉट ऑन द बेसिस और द लाइंस ऑफ द रिलीजन वो है क्या ऐसा तो उनको लीडरशिप क्यों चाहिए दोनों को
No, so that's a great question. The last time there was any Muslim rallying around a particular leader was, if you remember, Shahabuddin. And why Shahabuddin? Because Shahabuddin had taken it upon himself to rally around the whole Shah Bano case at that point in time, where Rajiv Gandhi did a U-turn. If you look at Muslim leadership allows itself to be subsumed by central leaderships. Even today, Owaisi is seen as the second team or the B team of the BJP. Now, that narrative actually is destructive for the BJP, not for Owaisi. Because what you're
Exactly.
doing is you're funding and giving milk to someone, a snake in this case, or whatever it is, but you're actually funding someone to create a narrative that in any case no one believes. So it's neither here nor there. Number two, please recognize one reality of Indian politics. Indian politics is not driven by development. If it was development driven, then India Shining wouldn't have collapsed the way it did. Indian politics is still driven by caste, creed, religion, and color to a large and actually most potent extent. What happened in Bengal in 2021? Everyone assumed that Mamata Banerjee would be out of the door. Everyone said she's appeasing the Muslims. What happened? The fact is, our political leadership has sacrificed the identity of one India at the cost of the ballot. And it has been happening since 1950. So, unless that stops, none of this will stop.
Mm,
Because there will always be agent
mm,
provocateurs who will want to provoke you into doing things that you shouldn't be doing. Which is why Abhijit's point and Sreemoy's point earlier is valid. You must have laws that deal with any form of communal disharmony in a severe manner. I mean, how long did it take for a Ravi Shankar Prasad to react to Twitter? They were exchanging tweets every day on what the violations were. I mean, this is how bizarre the state is. So BJP
mm.
may be strong and may have a 56-inch, chest, but frankly, it's not visible.
I
And
want to
just
ask
to
this
get the
question,
other
and I think
side,
Shimoy needs to come in now.
just quickly, can I quickly, just one
Mm,
quick point? Sorry,
mm,
Sreemoy, I don't intend to. I've completely stifled you like Advaita stifles me. But let's look at the other side. Suhel mentioned Syed Shahabuddin. Look what happened to Arif Muhammad Khan Saab.
Yeah.
He was banished into the political wilderness. Mind you, he's had a lot of goodwill from the average Muslim. But that average Muslim couldn't even invite him to their family events because of the
mm,
fear of their feudal elites that still controlled them. And if they invited him, they would send goons to their house to break up the wedding and things like that. Understand, I keep saying this, the answer is not competitive radicalization, it is to build up state capacity. You need the police to go break up these feudal thug lords and things like that. And it is in police reforms that the solution to Muslim identitarian vote bank lies. Because the Muslim identitarian vote bank is bought on the back of terror. You see the terror as a Hindu, you refuse to acknowledge the terror that the average Muslim lives in from his own Gunda warlord in his own mohalla. Sorry, Shiv,
mm.
yours.
And this also, I mean, Owaisi made that comment recently when he said, if a small fraction of the population of Muslims gets radicalized, can you imagine what happens? And a lot of people took offense to that, and a lot of people said this is a threat, etc., etc. But I think that was a sensible intervention, because you have to also think about this aspect when the discourse moves out of the gray area and gets into these black and white zones. Are we then creating a situation where we are going to go ahead and inadvertently, even not when intending to, lead to a radicalization of a certain group of people? And remember, ISIS, part of its strategy is really to attack this gray area in which most civil democracies live. And to
I,
you, this is to
I,
you.
yeah, I'll have to leave at 7, so I'll just make a very small comment. I largely agree with what Abhijit and Suhel said. There's really not much else to say there. Just a small thing. I think the Muslims see the liberals as some sort of an ally. I think that is actually harming them as a community. Liberals are not their ally; they are crooks. They use the Muslims to perpetuate their grip on power. They are not crooks. They are not their allies. The Muslims must have a better representation from their community, and they must stop seeing the BJP as their enemy. I mean, for all its incompetencies, and BJP has a lot, it still does a lot of developmental politics, which parties which the Muslims have been voting for ages have not done for them. So I think they need to look at it from a clearer perspective. But I'm not very sure under these circumstances, where the Muslim victimization and their exhibition of street power is whitewashed by the liberals in the mainstream narrative. Do they really have the chance to take a look at those truths? I'm not very sure they do. That's where I land. I think At the current situation, given the current situation, I'm not very hopeful that will happen anytime soon.
Well, I'm sorry, Sreemoy, you only got 2 interventions because, as you can tell, Suhel and Abhijit don't really let anyone
No,
else
no,
speak.
actually, no. I really enjoyed, listening to them, and absolutely
No,
not.
why do you
I
divide
said whatever I had.
people all the time? Why do you always
Yeah, why
divide
are you
people?
railroading poor Sreemoy? Yeah.
Because
It's a lot
And
of
this is the
inability to anchor.
ambience.
No,
This
no.
Advaita,
is
why
the
are you so
ambience right
horrible to
now. Right?
Suhel? Suhel has been nothing but decent and nice to you, and yet you constantly abuse him, harass him,
And she gets
treat him like
100
a
rupees,
stepchild.
400 rupees for each question. That money goes to her. That's how she's rich.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I don't know.
okay. I've got to take you leave now. I got to take you leave. It was amazing being on the show. I look forward to seeing you guys
Please come
again
back,
in the future. Yeah,
Sreemoy, and
sure.
we'll
And
definitely
Sreemoy,
give
don't
you
be
more
so
time to
nice.
speak.
Huh? Just be cruel
Yeah,
to her.
and don't be so polite, Sreemoy. You can say Advaita sucks. I mean, I know that's what you're trying to say, but you're not able to verbalize it. But it's fine. We understand you, brother. We stand with you. Stay strong.
And you
Okay,
all
bye.
have been complaining about another brotherhood for the last 1 hour and creating a brotherhood here.
Can we
So
also invite
there's their
Karju?
Okay,
hypocrisy, viewers.
Can
okay
you
then.
invite Karju also, please, next time?
Bye.
Oh yeah,
He's
I
actually,
love Justice
I don't
Kaju.
know if he's going to come back actually, Justice Kaju, because I think he wasn't very pleased with us, right? The last time, like he didn't
No,
like
you
us
call
too
him.
much.
He'll come. He'll come. He'll
Acha,
come.
the broadcast has ended, right?
No, the
No, it's
broadcast
still
is still
going.
on. I'm ready to end it now because Sreemoy is gone for his birthday party. So
Oh,
yeah,
Okay, ended, yeah, so
so
that we
yeah.
can.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for tuning in. And really, this is, of course, a conversation that we intend to keep having, hopefully in a more a realistic way and not in the shrill way that will antagonize more people. So thank you so much. And do like, share, and subscribe to us so that I can continue to pay Suhel and AIM for joining me on these Sunday clubs because
Yeah,
they're
right.
getting increasingly expensive. And you know their lifestyle, they travel the world only first class, so it's a lot for me to
Okay.
deliver on. Okay, thank you. Like, share, subscribe.
see,
See
she's
you next
asking us
Sunday.
for money. She's basically asking us for money.